In this episode of Mwah TV, I'm going to explain exactly what brand strategy means. Misunderstood, misquoted, too much confusing jargon. Let's bust that and leave you with a really proper understanding. I keep feeling like Donald Trump when I do this. Sidebar, China. It's too similar, isn't it? We need to lose this accent. And start giving them a little bit of a nudge. I'm not going to be able to pop this balloon. There is a really strong chance that you don't understand what brand strategy means. That is not your fault. You see, the creative minds that make up this world have overcomplicated things. How one agency talks about brand strategy will be completely different from how another agency does it. So it's no wonder that you might be feeling confused. And getting to grips with what brand strategy means is made so much more difficult because of this. Today, I'm going to clear it up for you by keeping things as simple as possible. I'm going to tell you what you need to know as a busy business owner so that you can go away and think about how this will really affect your current business goals and activity right now. Let's begin then by covering exactly what brand strategy is not. I want to start with the term brand to kick us off. A brand is not a logo. A brand is not a color or a set of colors. A brand is not a product. A brand is not a mission statement. And a brand is absolutely not a photograph. A brand is a perception and a feeling, like a collection of emotions. Using your imagination, think about a generic cup of coffee. Now, use your imagination to think about a Starbucks. The emotions that you just felt there in comparison is exactly what a brand is all about. And the way you just felt has been made up and orchestrated in a very intentional way. Starbucks have done this to make sure that as many people as possible associate the same sorts of emotions with what it feels like to get a Starbucks as opposed to getting a generic cup of coffee. And side note here, if you're the person who just thought that through and said to themselves, well, Laura, I hate Starbucks, that's intentional too. Starbucks has intentionally made sure that their brand turns certain people off, and you fall into that category. In turning you off, they're turning the right people that they want to speak to on. Brand strategy is all about helping a business achieve their goals as a brand faster and more effectively. And in some cases, brand strategy might be helping the business to figure out what that goal ought to be in figuring out how they're going to overcome a certain obstacle or challenge that they have in their business right now. Working on this covers a few more areas of brand that we haven't looked at yet. So let's just get into clarifying them before we move on any further. If your brand is a perception and a collection of emotions, then your branding is how you go about expressing those emotions. And you need a brand identity to visually express those emotions. So you can start to see how things begin to fit together here. Brand strategy is the magic glue that holds all of these pieces of the puzzle together. It's the how and the why of your brand, your branding, and your brand identity. Like I've already said, it's really easy to see where people can get confused with this. And what sometimes makes that confusion even more challenging is that people approach it from different angles. There are a lot of end products that can come out as a result of brand strategy. I'm talking about things like your website, your brand photography, your logo, your tagline, your customer loyalty program, and your social media content. It feels so difficult to not rush ahead like an excited child in a sweet shop and get to all of these things first before the brand strategy bit. Let's be honest. Everyone rushes to tackle these things first because they feel like the most fun activities that you can do in your business. And also you think, well, that's the first thing that the customer sees, so that should be the first thing that I deal with to get going. Move on a couple of years, or when you've got over that initial honeymoon phase of being a business owner, and you quickly realize that yes, those might be the first things that the customer sees, but actually you need some more stuff behind that if you want to make your business really work. So what a lot of people go ahead and do is they start spinning that plate to make sure that what the customer sees first is kind of working, while they draw their attention to the other areas of their business. And these are the things that they think are going to make a major difference to their bottom line at the end of the financial year. I'm talking about things like building a sales funnel that works, working out how you're going to do your marketing, or you might refer to this as your marketing strategy. Or you might be focused on identifying where the gaps are in your team and then putting in all that work to make sure that you can fill those gaps with the right sorts of people. And at all times, you want to be increasing your conversion rate to try and make sure that all the attention and focus that you're doing on the customer-facing stuff is actually paying off. You're getting a return on your investment. In truth, brand strategy should come before all of that stuff that I've just talked about. And that's because really good brand strategy should inform how all of these things are created and managed and how they evolve as well. When we get all of these things into working order and you feel like you're operating in a well-oiled machine, we often refer to that as brand alignment, or getting your brand into alignment. You should think about subscribing to my TV today if this is something that's on your mind right now in your business. You just realized you want to try and get everything into much better alignment in your business, and you really feel quite interested about how you could maybe be doing that with a little bit more creativity. If you stick around here and subscribe, I share tips and pointers and lots of inspiration about this every single Friday. If I'm going to be totally honest, right now in my entrepreneurial circle, so that's people that I know from the local area and a lot of people who I know around the world online in different types of groups and forums, probably get about 10% of all this stuff that I'm talking about today. And I feel like there's a very clear reason as to why that might be. We've seen a huge surge in entrepreneurism over the last few years, and that has been as a result of different world events, but lots more people now want to be in charge of how they live their life, and they see that running a business and becoming an entrepreneur is the way that they want to live life on their terms. And that mass surge and exodus of people has resulted in lots of people producing these tick box lists, checklists if you will, on all the things you need to have in place if you want to be seen as a really good entrepreneur or business owner. And when everyone has taken this approach of ticking off the list, we have ended up with a whole gamut of people who actually have these hollowed out husks as brands. They're not proper businesses because they've followed this tick box exercise and they've missed out the crucial part. Just like a really thin skin on a balloon. So think of this skin, it's made up of brand photography, headshots, selfies, social media posting and content. But if you walk up to them and give them a little bit of a poke, they just evaporate. It's just hot air. There's nothing inside to hold them together. A business that has a brand strategy and a much richer, considered brand identity is a little bit more like a watermelon. There's substance all the way through. And this melony substance is made up of how you sound as a brand, how you look as a brand, how you smell and feel as a brand on an emotional level, as well as tangibly, what your turn of phrase is as a brand, what you believe as a brand, the philosophies you adhere to as a brand, your principles and values as a brand, how you will always behave as a brand, the storylines of your brand, who your brand hangs out with and does business with, who your brand is in love with, who your brand is friends with, who your brand is arch enemies with and rivals with. A brand strategist can really help you figure out exactly what your melony substance and jewel-like seeds ought to be. And what's more, a really great brand strategist will help you figure out exactly what your Melanie substance should be, backed up with hard data and facts and figures and a whole lot of logic. Then they're going to help you interpret if the Melanie substance and filling that you thought you needed is actually going to be the right Melanie substance that you're going to need to make sure you can achieve your goals. If you know someone who's struggling to take their business brand from hollow balloon to watermelon full of beautiful substance, then why don't you share a link to this episode? It can be a good deed for the day. If you've enjoyed learning about watermelons and balloons today to understand exactly what brand strategy means, then I am willing to bet you're going to love these episodes up next. This is where we start taking all of this theory and putting it into action with your business. I'll see you next time. Mwah!
Now, before you go anywhere, don't forget to subscribe. Mwah!